Hello, Ugan. Thank you very much for being with us today. I really appreciate your time. Having been a visionary educator yourself in 2021, you have tons of experience and have been a massive supporter of the automation space for UiPath and developing individuals' careers. To start off, maybe today, what I'm going to ask you is a couple of questions and we just kind of take it as we go. Tell me about how you ended up in automation yourself and tell us a little bit about your history.
Yeah, Martin, hi. Thanks for having me. Great to be here. So like you mentioned, yeah, somehow somebody decided I was going to be a visionary educator last year at some point. Don't know how that happened though. But myself, my history, I've spent the better part of my life in the enterprise space, primarily in the ERP space. And I probably did that for a long time. I'm giving away my age here, but for more than 20 years. Doing ERP for probably 25 years. And at some point I decided I wanted to do something different. And we were on that cusp of this digital wave or this digital disruption, as we want to call it. And there were a lot of these emerging technologies coming about. And for me, I was at that inflection point in my own life, my own personal life. And I thought about what is it that excited me over the last 25 years. And I thought back very hard and kind of came to the conclusion of I enjoyed life most when businesses were in startup phase. When they became big businesses and became corporates, it's when it became the drudge of going to the office every day.
Right.
So myself and a couple of colleagues got together and we decided to start this business that's focused on more 4IR emerging type technologies. And through this journey of discovery, we came across RPA, right? And we said, okay, I mean, we knew of RPA, we knew of its existence, it's been around for a while, but what really caught our eye very quickly was UiPath. And the differentiation around how UiPath is approaching this entire domain of RPA, where it was not just the conventional screen automation, it was a more holistic approach to automation, right? And not task automation, it was looking at a business end to end and saying, okay, how do we improve efficiency and productivity within the business by automating end to end? So this is how effectively we got into this RPA domain. But the other thing that was quite deliberate on day one was understanding the fact that we in a third world economy, right? That's the fact. And we don't have the skills readily available for emerging technologies. So in order for us to benefit from these types of technologies, we have to create the skills. We have to create the skills of tomorrow. And almost immediately, when we started the business, we said we need to start a skills academy. Right? We have to start thinking about things like upskilling and reskilling and creating the skills of tomorrow so that our main line of business, being the consulting business, can actually be successful. Because you can't really be deploying technologies if there isn't the skills available in the marketplace to support and maintain and grow that entire ecosystem. So it was very deliberate upfront, saying that yes, we want to get into these technologies, but equally we want to be able to create the skills of tomorrow. And that's how we got into this space of the academic alliance with UiPath. Great program, by the way. We got involved in some really good programs early on. So one of the first programs we had was with our government. We approached them when we were speaking about skills development holistically and more skills development from a 4IR space. And one of those technologies was robotics and machine learning and AI. And we came up with a plan and said, we need to invest in this space. We need to create industry relevance around the skills that we create. It's not just about getting a degree or a diploma coming out of college or university. It's about how do you apply that? Where do you find the match between supply and demand from an industry point of view? And hence, together with the Academic Alliance, we came up with a program, and we effectively started the RPA program together with other programs. I mean, we did other things like data science and cloud computing, etc. But RPA was certainly one of those initiatives that were particularly new. And I think from that, this is what piqued the entire interest in the economy, in the ecosystem around, how do we make this more widely available, right? And hence, we continued the discussion around how do we create certification around it, how do we create relevance, and those kinds of things. Sorry, I know it was a long-winded introduction,
No.
But back to you.
Man, no, that's a really good story of your journey. And how many years was that journey? So
yeah, so I mean, we started this in 2019, right? So
okay.
just before COVID. So we started this in 2019. Our first academic alliance program started in the beginning of 2020. And effectively, we ran that program for 2 years in the midst of COVID. Right? So where we could do face-to-face contact, we did that. Where we couldn't, we did it remotely. But yeah, and through that program, we certified and trained probably in excess of 50 individuals, 50 learners. But the entire program across all of the other streams and the other technologies, we effectively put 1,000 unemployed youth through this program.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah. That was a really cool program. We really and thoroughly enjoyed it, and there were lots of learnings that came out of that. Right, it was a pilot program by government. Lots of learnings that came out of it, and now it's around how do we scale that.
All right, and so is there, out of the lessons that you'll have learned out of that program, how did you actually try and marry the students to industry or get them into jobs? Have you got a process or a program that you can share with some of the other educators on how you've done that?
Absolutely. So this was paramount for us on day one, right? My commitment back to the stakeholders was, we do not want to do training. We are not a training organization, right? We're here to build skills and build skills of the future. And particularly if you look at the target demographic, right? We were targeting unemployed youth. You may know, as a South African, Martin, we have a huge youth unemployment problem, huge, massive unemployment problem. We've got a huge graduate unemployment problem, right? So we've got people coming out of universities that just can't find job. And this speaks to relevance, right? In terms of relevance of what we teach versus relevance of what's demanded by industry. And as part of our proposition back to government was to say, we're going to create this program. There's an element of theory and learning, but there's a greater element around practicals and work experience. And so this was the core tenets of the program. They had 3 things. You have to learn the theory, you have to practice the theory, and then you have to go into the workplace and go and apply what you learned. And as part of this program, we were able to deploy learners into our customers, into our competitors. So our competitors even also took resources from us. Right. And giving, for me, at the end of the day, this was about job creation more than anything else, right? It was about creating skills, but more importantly, it's about how do we create jobs, right? And this is the basic tenet of how we run this program.
Yep. And, the evolution of what the Academic Alliance program is within UiPath at the moment, you're exactly in line with what we're building under my leadership now. Is I'm also not in education, I'm in careers. How do we build people's careers? How do we help people to do this? A question that I maybe have for you is, so as part of what happened with this program as well, is now South Africa is the first country in the world that has actually made an automation developer part of a national qualification. What do you think the long-term effect in South Africa will be of having something like that? And how does that program actually work? Do you have an understanding of how that program works? I think the government provides funding to academic institutions if they want to run that course, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. So, but before I answer, right, I think it's also important to understand the context here. I'm not sure about other countries and other emerging economies, whether they have the same approach to education. But South Africa is a little bit unique given our history. right? So given our history of inequality, what we used to call bound to education, job reservation, and those kinds of things. So you ended up having an economy of a very few very skilled people, right? And then having a large mass of people that's uneducated, right, effectively. So using the conventional mechanism of school, college, university, that wasn't really going to work for us because it was going to take many, many, many generations to find parity. So South Africa went on this route of saying, okay, skills are important, right? Experience is important, recognition of prior learning. These kinds of things are all important aspects of education. And sometimes formal education creates barriers. We don't realize this, but it creates barriers, right? Meaning that, if you went to a college, then you can't really go and study at a university. It kind of creates these artificial barriers. And that's why the qualifications framework that's now built within South Africa is about how do we remove these barriers? How do we make education more accessible to all, right? How do we allow for career progression, right? You may start off with something, but how do you end up somewhere else, right? Without having these artificial barriers in between. So that's what we call the National Qualifications Framework, and that's what it's about. And the focus is around occupational profiles, right? Effectively saying we want to create qualifications that create jobs. Right? We don't want to create qualifications just for the purpose of qualification. There must be an end objective. And through this program, we went and worked with the authorities together with the guys from the Academic Alliance around proposing how do we create this, this occupation called an RPA developer, right? With something that never existed previously, right? And maybe in 5 years' time won't exist, will be superseded by something else as well. But it's about, how do we get that that level of continuity, right? In that what's relevant today may not be relevant tomorrow. Right. So how is this now important back to the real world, right? Now that we've got this qualifications profile, we can now teach against it, we can evaluate against it, people can be measured against it. And more importantly, people now can walk into jobs. They can walk into careers where the requirement is to have this recognized qualification. Right? So it's not just an OEM qualification, right? It's an OEM qualification together with a nationally recognized qualification. Right? So like you would recognize a degree or a diploma or a certificate, likewise, we have this qualification now that is recognized by the industry. So it makes it a lot easier for people who, whether you went to university or college or not, but it makes it a lot easier for you to walk into new opportunities in the workspace.
Yep. Excellent. I mean, linking this all together, if I go back to one of the parts of the conversation at the beginning, you mentioned that you had 1,000 individuals that you as a company yourselves brought through a program that you ran yourself and took them out of poverty. When you look at the pay scale comparison for somebody that has a UiPath or a automation skills or industry skills, for lack of a better word, what do you think the value is of having that certification, and what is the, if you know, what is the pay difference between somebody that has a UiPath certification or an automation certification as a whole, with even other organizations in the same space as us? What is the value that brings to that individual from a benefits perspective?
Yeah. So firstly, for myself as an individual, right, coming out of the enterprise space and working with lots of OEM technologies, I've over the years and over the decades have come to appreciate the relevance of industry certification. Right? You may come out of university with an engineering degree, but if you don't have the kind of exposure to OEM platforms, you know better than the guy who doesn't have a degree. Right? So right. I've come to appreciate the value of industry knowledge and industry certification. And for me, I think that's paramount. I mean, you give me two individuals today, one guy who is industry certified and the other guy who has a master's degree in something, I'll take the guy who is industry certified, right?
Yeah.
And
Yep.
down, right? Because the time to value is significantly shorter for me as a business owner, right? If we come back to the person themselves, right now, and especially looking at the program that we did run, where 99% of the people who participated in the program were either university dropouts, university graduates, or school leavers that never had jobs and couldn't find jobs, by the way.
Right.
And a lot of these guys, a lot of these people are now employed in the formal economy, earning a salary and earning a market-related salary. I've got people within our business, within FIRtech itself, right, that came out of our RPA program, where prior to this program, they were unemployed, had nothing, coming out of poverty, to the point where today these guys are meaningfully employed. One or two of them got married, they bought their first houses, right?
Oh.
Earning really market-related salaries, right? So if I had to compare them with other people that have joined the business that didn't come out of these programs, their salaries are competitive, exactly the same.
Yep.
There's no difference in terms of, there's no prejudice in the pay scale. So if anything, this was an opportunity, this is, and I see this as an opportunity for people to leapfrog the system, right?
Yep.
To be able to get into the formal economy in a significantly quicker way.
Yep. Well, just as a matter of complete interest, I have no formal degrees either. I am industry certified my whole life with various companies, and I've managed to build my career and expertise through doing that. So yeah, I 100% understand the value, right?
I think that the world has opened the eyes to this fact, right? And at the end of the day, it's about skills. It's whether or not you have the skills. The fact that you have a little piece of paper from a university doesn't necessarily grant you or guarantee you having the skills.
Yep, that's excellent. So, I mean, what can the industry and education do, in your mind, to improve this collaboration of students getting this experience? What can UiPath, for example, do with the industry to help speed up this process with education and even organizations like yourself?
Yeah, so I think we've passed the first hurdle, right? And the first hurdle here is around convincing the regulators, right? Convincing the regulators that there is this need in the marketplace, right? So whether it's around emerging tech like RPA or other kind of technologies, I think convincing the regulators that we are in this twilight zone of where there is careers that are about to be developed that you just don't know about today, right? And as and when these come to the fore, we need to be ready for them. We need to prepare for them. We need to make them industry acceptable. So I think we've passed that first hurdle. To me, the second hurdle would be around how do we get mainstream education institutions, right, like colleges and universities, is how do we get them to embrace this qualification? Now in South Africa, we have this qualification. How do we take this qualification and make it part of mainstream education? Be it at school level, right, because it's very possible, at secondary school level, be it at university level, we can embed components of this qualification into mainstream education. And then the other hurdle that we still need to, I think we're making progress, but maybe we need to accelerate, is how do we get industry now to accept, right? How do we get industry to come to this party and say, there is this qualification, it's recognized, it's regulated. How do we get you to accept that people coming with this qualification, right, are worth their salt, right, and can be productive in your workplace? So that for me is the journey we still need to follow.
Yeah, I think I 100% agree with you. And I think for us as a company, one of the actions that I have on my team at the moment is to devise a strategy around what I call a country development plan, where we look at the engagement that UiPath has at different levels, all the way from government down to grassroots education and reskilling the individuals, and actually understand how we can be part of specific country development or digitization projects or programs, how we can actually create links between industry and education. One of the things that we will be starting to pilot in the next couple of quarters is looking at how we build internship programs with specific customers that are maybe in the same location as a university or an academy, to say, hey, do you actually know that these are the customers that are around your location that are using our technology and automation, and this is potentially the jobs that they have. So how do we get those industry players to engage with the university and say, hey, run a hackathon on behalf of what I'm trying to fix within my business, have some of your students actually participate in it, get that real world experience. So it's not just about the knowledge, but it's actually the use of the knowledge that they gained, and then being able to present that back to the company as an example, almost like a Shark Tank type of environment. And the company can select a group or certain individuals from that group for an interview process. And that's a way we can actually link academia and industry together. So these are some of the things that we're thinking of from an organization perspective. How do we bridge that gap between industry and education, to your point? So
yeah, perfect. I mean, great example.
Yep. So I think, there's a big question out in the industry, and I know this is always a bit of a curveball. A lot of people, and I have my personal opinion about this as well, is believe that robots and automation are going to take away people's jobs, right? So there's this big fear factor about that, and I'm pretty sure you probably hear that yourself. Having a very successful company in South Africa, you're the CEO of the company, you deal with the engagement with customers all the time. They see you walk in the front door and they hear you from this automation company. People believe you're potentially going to take their job away. How do you elude those fears that people within companies have? And how do you explain to them what the value of automation is and how they can free them?
Yeah, look, I mean, great question, very controversial, but it is reality, right? I mean, we get this question in every single engagement that we have with customers, right? So if it doesn't come in the sales cycle, it definitely comes in your project kickoff from the people who are going to be
right. Yep.
So we've been doing this for a while, and in every one of our customers to date, we've never had the case of where customers have reduced headcount as a result of an automation project. Right? It's always been the case of people being redeployed or given new definition around what's required of them. And we must think about this logically and be a little bit more pragmatic about it as well, right? I mean the age-old analysis or analogy to farming, to producing tools, to automation in the factory. I mean, this is the evolution. This is what happens, right? We find new ways of occupying our minds, right? I can't remember the guy's name, but there is this one prof that comes out of MIT, and he was asked this question, and his answer, I thought, was quite succinct in terms of the way in which he answered. He says, we will never have that situation as far as humans are concerned because of two reasons. Firstly, humans have an insatiable need for greed. We want things, material things, all of the time, right?
All right.
And that's never going to go away. Right? We're always going to want material things, and the fact that we want material things means we're going to have to be creating material things, right?
Right.
Secondly, he says we have human ingenuity, right? Meaning that we've got this creative mind that is always thinking about the next evolution. What next, right? So we're never going to have this situation of where, robots come in and we sit on our laurels as humans and do nothing, and they take over the rest of the world or take over jobs, per se. So he comes from that kind of point of view, and I kind of agree with him, right? Because we've seen it throughout history. We've absolutely seen it throughout history. There's always going to be waves of disruption. It's just that now we're in a wave of technological disruption. So it just means that we need to pivot. We need to change our minds around what we do next, how best we use our time, right? But coming back to the point of the question in terms of practically, right, in the real world, it's about change, and it's about managing perception and managing change. That's what, for me, in every single engagement we have on day one, the first thing I want to talk about is how are we going to manage this change, right? What plans and processes are we going to put in place to manage the perception of impact that these automation programs are going to have on people, right? How do we manage their journey, their transition, right? How do we, give them, we talk about giving them these higher order tasks to do, right? There's no better time than the present. Let's do it on day one.
Of course.
Right? On day one, let's talk about what are these higher order tasks we want to give our people to do. Then we'll start the rest of the project, right? When you get to the end of the project, it's a bit too late, because by then, you've lost the people along the way, and it can become counterproductive to your project itself.
Yep. It's actually very interesting. There's a couple of things that were going through my mind when you were saying all those things. And I can actually relate it back to something. There's a saying that goes, the most important thing in the world is not knowledge, but imagination, because it's imagination that fuels ideation, vision, strategy. If what you were talking about, what the MIT professor said as well, once again, creativity, innovation, and things like that. And if you go back to that saying, if you can give the knowledge to the robots to deal with, it can free you up to do the innovation and the creative stuff. That's the benefit of it. So yeah, I think if I personally look at it as well, technology has always been reported to be taking things away from people, taking jobs away. But even the Industrial Revolution, people believe that there will be less jobs. There are so many jobs in manufacturing today. What happens is every time there's one of these evolutional changes, it's like the world takes one step further up, and the more mundane tasks can actually be automated. And we just did it in the Industrial Revolution 200 years ago. Now we're just going to do it with the stuff that runs on your desktop to free up your creative and imagination. I think, yeah, sorry, go for it.
Yeah, I think the difference is that, it's just that the change that we're experiencing now compared to 200 years ago, it's just that the change is so much faster, right?
Yes.
That's the only difference, right? But the bottom line is that what we did 200 years ago, we need to do now as well. We need to create psychological safety for people, right?
Yes.
Upfront. We need to create that level of psychological safety. And if we do that well, everything else will kind of fall in place, right? Look, I mean, if you think about it a little bit differently, right? If you think about, the whole definition of what is growth, right? In any sense, let's talk about it from an economics point of view, right? Growth is effectively GDP.
Yes.
Right? So this is how we measure growth every day, right?
Very hot topic at the moment.
Pardon?
A very hot topic at the moment. GDP.
Yeah. And if we think about GDP, GDP is effectively a function of the resources that you have as a country. So whether they're physical resources or whether they're human capital, and it's a function of productivity. Those are the only two things that contribute to GDP. Now, if we're saying that technology, and more specifically in the context of this conversation, we're talking about automation as being an accelerator to efficiency and productivity. So what does that mean? That means more GDP, right?
Yep.
Surely more GDP means more jobs. So that's now like a counterintuitive argument, right?
Yes. Yep. No, thank you so much. I love your insight into this, and obviously having the number of years of experience that you have in this field, having to deal with these customers that have these questions. It's good to hear how you address that from a perspective. I think a lot of people would be interested.
It doesn't get easier, right? The questions just get harder.
No, I can imagine. And I know it's a reality, but there is obviously people that have to be reskilled. And that's fundamentally one of the things, that there's an opportunity for people that want to get reskilled to do this. It's very easy to throw up your hands and say, oh, well, the robot's going to take my job, but I'm going to make the robot my job is the reality. I think, I say to people, I'm older than Google, so that ages me. So if you think of it, when I was looking at a job in the 1990s and stuff, it would literally have in the requirements of the job, it'll say, do you have Word, Excel, and email expertise? You know what I mean? And today it's taken as self-evident. So the reality is automation skills as we see it today, we need every single person to understand what it is to be a citizen developer. Even if they don't necessarily want to be a developer, they need to understand the automation mindset. Because if you really want to push the GDP inside a company or reduce the cost to the bottom line by automating mundane processes, the sheer fact that you can understand how to automate a new process, not necessarily a historical process, but a new process within a business when you want to launch a product, and you can actually do it more cost effective than your competitor, that's how you change the GDP of your own company, right? And that's where the real value proposition of automation is. It's this fundamental thing that people just have to turn the coin the other way around and see what the value is of it. And that's just the way I look at it, right?
No, you're quite right, Martin, right? And I think that, I mean, if I use the analogy that you were using about the 1990s, I don't know exactly what you were talking about, right? But it was Lotus Notes and those kinds of things, right?
Yeah, we're perfect.
I mean, it was about, and those are productivity tools, if you think about it, right? I mean, they still are, right? Excel,
Yes.
Word, these are all productivity tools. This next wave that is coming thick and fast around citizen development, these are productivity tools. Right? Once we start changing our mindset around the fact that this is not a programming tool, this is a productivity tool. This is a tool that I'm going to use for myself to make myself more efficient, right? So I can do better things and learn better things. Right?
Yep.
So that wave, I think, is still coming. Maybe it hasn't come at the same velocity that we'd like it in our markets, in the emerging markets, and maybe perhaps it's already there in the first world markets. But I think when that wave comes, right, that's really going to be another inflection point around, efficiency, productivity, and people's mindsets to work and what they do.
Right. So look, always conscious of your time. You got a company to run. I've got an option A and an option B of two questions at the end of it. You tell me which one you want to answer. The option A is, what are your words of wisdom for a student in this space? And option B is, what are your words of wisdom for an educator within this space? You can pick either one of the two which you want to answer. Okay,
so I'll go with option A, right? I'm a little bit more passionate about my students than I am about other educators, right? So just yesterday, I had an intake of new graduates coming in, and we were doing induction. And I kind of tell them at every induction, right? I have this set speech about university and what university teaches you and what the real world requires of you. So, for me, it's about students need to learn and embrace the fact that going to university teaches you a couple of core disciplines, right? And a couple of them are around, how to think, how to get discipline, how to have method in the madness, be methodical about everything that you do. And, this is where you kind of study. You read books and you study and you learn from these books. But unfortunately, when you get into the work environment, this is not what the work environment is about.
Yeah.
Right? The work environment,
black and white versus color,
is not about how well you studied and what you learned from that. For me, what I require on day one is I take for granted that university taught you how to think. Doesn't matter think in what, whether it's think in math or in physics or in biology, doesn't really matter. But you know how to think, right? And be a little bit analytical about the way in which you solve problems. But more importantly for me is to show them the distinction between what is studying and what is learning.
right?
There's a difference, right? And in the work environment, we encourage learning every single day. Whether you're a graduate, whether you've been here for 10 years, or whether you've been here for 20 years. It's around what have you learned today that you didn't know yesterday. Right. And this is the mindset I try and create within our new grads.
Right. That's excellent. I thank you so much for your time. And I wish you all the best of luck. I will be coming out to South Africa next year. I will make sure that I spend some time with you. I'm working with Mike, who's the country manager out there, to sort out some time for me and do maybe a couple of industry things, and would love to have you on stage with me speaking to people. Thank you so much for your time today. Have you got any questions for me before we cancel? Have you got any questions for me? That would be a good thing as well.
No, not really, Martin. Looking forward to you guys visiting. Always great to catch up. We really enjoy being part of the Academic Alliance. We never even touched the surface around talking about democratization of education, which is what you guys have done. You've effectively shifted the plane there with everybody else following. But yeah, you guys are the leaders in that space. I look forward to further collaboration, and it was my absolute privilege to be part of this conversation with you.
Thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. Hello, everybody. I have some really exciting news about the new certification and micro-credentials that we're bringing out within UiPath within the next year. And this is an amazing opportunity with all our educators to be able to share this. The first thing that we're bringing out is going to be our micro-credentials program. This is a very standard thing that happens in the industry, that people can use badges or recognitions for skills that they have on platforms like LinkedIn, so that they can actually share that with individuals. This is really important for our students and even for our educators, that will be able to get badges through this program as well. So the micro-credentials program is launching the first wave in November this year, and we are basically going to be rolling out waves of these implementations, where we're looking in Q1 for UiPath, which is in February next year. We'll be looking to bring out the first wave of credentials that's available for badging on our academy. So the UiPath Academy that a lot of you use as educators. So the goals and the expected outcomes of these micro-credentials or badges for individuals are increasing their visibility with the badges and certifications that they have. Obviously, all of the students that you're working with want to get a job. They want to be able to prove what capability that they have to industry, to show that they not just learned book knowledge or was in a classroom, but actually have some practical experience around building things in automation. So that's number one. The second one is we want to create a directory to connected skilled earners with jobs, especially with our customers and partners. So we will actually be launching a directory service that individuals that have gotten these badges will be able to be searchable on that platform. They have an opt-in, opt-out option if they do or don't want to be, but this is a really good way for people to get their credentials validate or the badges that they've earned. We also want to support individuals on their career journey path. So once they accumulate some of these badges, it'll make recommendations on some of the things that they can do to continue the success that they have within their career at the moment and get to that next pay increase, build that next certification. So really put that out to the students as well, and it will provide some gamification as well. We can potentially launch challenges, things that they can do over the holiday, maybe even have some engagements with industry that actually puts challenges out for them, and they can participate in those challenges, build things or solutions around that, and be able to get rewarded for that effort that they put in, and they'll be able to put that on their badge directory where they host it. We want to provide a better user experience. Obviously, we really want to work and get the mind share of these students and be able to do that and give them better visibility of what they can and can't do from a career perspective. Share skills and achievements, bragging rights with all the other students, and being able to show to the industry what their capability is very important. And get a better insight into career development. So we have options where they can do A, B, C, D, E, and get a badge or a recognition for it. They could do, out of the following 10 options, do 5 and get recognized, or you can do 4 things and get a badge or something specifically for that in any specific order. The other thing that we really want to be able to do is rewards and recognition, which I've kind of touched on quite a bit here at the moment, on driving gamification and putting some programs in front of them. One of the fundamental things that we want to do with educators is those capstone projects that you have. We want to bring out the process that individual students can come onto the academy and actually complete some tests so that they can actually get a diploma at the end of the program that shows that they've actually completed the knowledge component, but we do an assessment on the skills that they've actually gained. So that's a really important part of what we want to do with this program as well. The other thing is we're looking at the categories, how you will actually get badges. So these are not what the actual badges are going to look like. These are just the categories. So don't get too excited about what they look like. This is just a draft. You will get badges for training completed. So that could be either at your university or academy on what they've done. The certification, the actual UiPath official certifications that we have out there at the moment for the UI ARD or the UI RPA certifications. So those will be official badges that you can get. You will get expertise badges. So we're working on this as well at the moment. So being able to get individuals recognized for proven experience. And this is going to take us a little while to get there, but look out for these in the next 3-4 quarters. We'll start bringing these out. Reward and recognition, I mentioned already. This is where we can actually reward individuals for work that they've done, achievements, being part of hackathons, those type of things. And then we can even potentially co-brand some badges with customers and our partners. So this platform is not just for education, it's across the whole of UiPath. It's for our partners, our customers, so everybody will use the same platform. From an experience perspective, the one thing that I mentioned before, the individuals will be able to share their badges that they've, or their certificates that they've got, and even diplomas on the UiPath Academy. On their social media profiles, people will be able to click on that and they'll be able to see exactly what that certificate is, and also be able to understand what that individual did to get that certification. Will also be a UiPath careers directory or credentials directory for individuals, and they will be able to allow themselves to be searchable, and people can find them based on skills, etc. So this is a good way for us to try and link industry with academia as well. So if you need any more information around the badging program, please reach out to the team. You will see slowly but surely in social media that this will get launched as of the 30th of November, and there's waves that carry on after that. So even as educators, you will also be able to get a badge within this program. The other thing that I'm really excited about is the new certification launch is coming up in 2023. So this is during UiPath's fiscal year, which will be from February 2023 till end of January 2024, which is our fiscal year. So we're bringing out new UiPath certifications for students and individuals, but we also very excited to be talking about the certification program that we're going to be bringing out for our educators and our instructors that are out in the industry. So from a first perspective, what we're bringing out in February 2023 is a new certification through Pearson's View, which will be a UiPath Automation Business Analyst. This is a recognition for the individuals in the industry that has been working as business analysts inside our customers and our partners that have the capability to do this exam. There's various places and parts of our platform that have knowledge on it. We've worked with IIBA in the United States to build this business analyst course as well. So there'll be enough information for somebody that wants to start this from scratch as a student, or potentially somebody that's been a business analyst for a number of years in the .NET industry and has moved into automation, or an individual that's just been a business analyst and now is very interested in becoming part of the automation family. So there's a lot of information that we will be able to share with you about the roadmap from the career perspective. The other three really exciting certifications that we're looking at to bring out next year is the Solutions Architect certification, which is a key part of the COE inside our customers. The Infrastructure Engineer that helps set up the infrastructure, be it in the cloud or on premises. And then one that I love is actually the Citizen Developer certification out there. I think that will help us significantly with people, not just in IT or in automation, looking at the capability of automation, but anybody that works in any type of department, be it HR, marketing, looking at how they can automate the processes in their day-to-day job. The vision of UiPath is a robot for every person. I believe that you have to educate every single person to understand the value of a robot and also being able to use one. So that Citizen Developer program will be really, really driving the industry and helping us build the capability so people have an automation first mindset. So I'm really looking forward to bringing that out. Now, the really big news that we also want to talk about is bringing out in the next fiscal year for us is a UiPath certified educator. We're in the starting phases of building the program requirements. Basically, what that means is you will have two types of certifications from us. The one will be a certified educator, which is somebody that's already in academia in a university or an academy and wants to get recognized for the skills and the teaching that he does within the automation industry. So we will bring out a training program specifically for you and an accreditation. The other one is the UiPath certified instructor, which is an individual that could be working part of the UiPath learning alliances and be working through a professional training organization to go run courses with specific customers, etc. That person could either be an individual or work through a training partner at the end of the day. This gives you a little bit of more of an insight on what those actual educators will be doing from a skills perspective, and an insight into some of the skills and process that they will have to go through. Yeah, they'll have to commit to teaching at least one academic alliance course within 18 months, hold at least one current UiPath certification, and their earning criteria, completion of the UiPath Academic Alliance Educator orientation as well. So that gives you a little bit of an insight of what the requirements look like at the moment. And then last but not least, an instructor. So this is for somebody that'll be able to work within our UiPath learning partners and be able to present courses to customers, partners, train groups of people, etc. And once again, it'll be based on criteria that we provide student kits for these individuals to go do as part of this job. So hopefully this gives you an insight into some of the really exciting things that we have coming up in the next year. This is our first education summit that we brought together like this. I look forward to speaking to all of you next year and see how many of these have actually launched and how many of these have actually resulted in people taking these up as careers. So my last quote to all of you is, please go big when it comes to certifications. I think across all of this event, you will see the value of certifications on top of having a degree or not even having a degree, and what the industry is telling us the relevance of these people are and how important they are in the industry for them. So I thank you very much and look forward for all of you to be part of our UiPath certified educators or our UiPath certified instructors. Thank you very much.